Welcome back. So this lesson, I just want to make one more small change right here. I'm kind of annoyed that we have the add product right here has all this information on how we can actually set up the metadata for the file. So I'm going to try and move that into a private method, just to also show you guys working with private methods. So what I'll do is pretty much, I'll just make a method right here, a private method that can say get metadata for image, something like that. And what it'll pretty much do is just return the actual metadata, which is pretty much just an image metadata right here. So that's kind of what it's going to end up returning, right? So we need to, of course, return that now. And what I'll do is just copy this down here. All the stuff we just had up there, I'm going to return that down here and then just end up down here returning this metadata right here. Now, you might say that's the same thing we just had, and you are kind of right, but now I can actually start validating this data a little bit before we actually return it, right? So the second step is kind of use this, so I'll just go up here and instead of getting the metadata right here, I'll just call that local function now to get the metadata. There we go. Now again, this code right here just got a lot easier to read again, right? So it's just a way to kind of try and make my code easier to read, and then you can start discussing, should it be here, should it be there? That's really up to you. But now that I have this, I can actually start validating information. Like for instance, if file before crop equals, if that's actually there, then I want to return the actual metadata, right? So if the file is there, then return the metadata. If not, I want to return undefined, right? So that just means that if, if there is no file, I don't want to return anything but undefined right here for this method, right? So pretty much meaning that if you don't find any file right here, return undefined. And I could be even more specific. I could put this into this method right here, and I could start saying if there's an image event and there's a target on the image event like this, and that target on the image event has a file length of a minimum of 1, right? So if that dot length right here, yeah, if there's a files, and so notice you can now start being very specific about what you actually have right here. If I say there's length in this file should be above 0, right? So that's kind of, now I've kind of validated at least that I have a file, I have an image changed event, I have a target on that one, I have files on that one, I have length, and I could keep going right here if I want to make sure that the metadata is actually okay. So you can now start actually defining if you end up getting an image back with an image metadata, or it's just undefined if something goes horribly wrong. And we could dive more into these validations if you wanted to. That's really up to you. You can start doing it with different scenarios, like you can use testing up here in the component. You can also start using testing in the service and stuff like that. So the point is just that now we can actually start validating this image data, and that's something new compared to what we had before. Now if any of this fails, you'll actually end up now creating a product with an image without an image. So we have to go and figure that one out next lesson. What if you don't send in any metadata? How will we validate that in the service? So we'll try and check that out in the next lesson. But now we've kind of again made this very, very simple to read. And you might even consider putting this somewhere else in a service, image manager service or something like that, if you don't want to do this every place where you need to crop an image. But that's really up to you. Let's end this lesson. The next lesson, let's try and figure out how we can actually validate that there is actually some metadata before we save this. See you next time. Have fun.